Welcome back to another Micro Soldering Wednesday. My name is Derek, and today we're going to be taking a look at this Xbox Series S. As you can see, it is missing the HDMI entirely, and there is a lot of damage around that area. So in continuation of Micro Soldering 101, I'm going to show you some of the basics to fixing something as complex as this. Let's get into the video. Alright, so the bulk of this is going to be done under the microscope. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of damage here. We're missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the 19 pads. We're missing almost all of them. And you can see some of the traces are just hanging on by a thread back here. Actually just going to break these off. Don't want to trust them. Actually, I might be able to reuse this one. Maybe. I'm going to quickly go through and put these guys on. They were knocked off when the HDMI fell off. Alright, I also desoldered this guy because of the obvious chip here in the corner. Don't know how it got chipped, but you can see it was like this. And I could see the little edge there. And when I looked at an angle, I noticed that it was kind of broken. So we're pulling it off and we're going to bypass it. I'm going to quickly do that. And we're going to use some wick to bypass it. What I mean by that is, here you can see I have a teeny bit of wick, and I can pull off the individual strands here, and we can make jumpers with them to connect different traces. So let me show you quickly how I'm going to do this. For example, I know that I need to let's get that one out of the way. I need to come in and attach this bottom. I guess it depends on the direction you're looking at it, but this is the orientation that I have the board. That would be closest to the HDMI. We're going to take that one. We're going to run it around. I'm going to suck up the solder from the second one so that it's less in the way. We'll attach it there. So we're avoiding this middle one. And then we'll come across to the center one right here, and we'll tack it in place. Now I can bend this back and forth and break it off right there at the solder joint. And that's the perfect length for another one that I have to run over here. So I'm going to quickly do that one. There. That one's now connected, and we'll go up to the top, and that one's now soldered on. Alright, I'm going to grab a second wire. This one has to go into the middle here. Let me see if I can tack it on that one right there. There we go. And we'll connect it up to this one right here, just like that. And then we'll bend this guy back and forth until it shears away. Now this one's a bit tricky because I have to go over a wire without touching them. It's the easiest way to do it. That you don't have to go over the wire this way, but it's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to come down at a sharp angle and tack it just like that. And then I'm going to fold it on down, and I'll break off the little leg here just for fun. Now, it's probably hard to tell from the angle of the camera, but I can fit easily my tweezers between those wires there, so they're definitely not shorting out. I'm going to carefully brush up the area, and I'm going to do so without damaging the little jumper wires that I just put out. I'll raise that guy back up. Now you can kind of see where I've got it connected. This one connects here, there, and there. That one jumps over here, this one to there, this one to there. The rest, these ones, they're not important for the bypass. Now we'll jump over. So we'll jump over to the HDMI itself. For this next step, you really do need a sharp blade. I've got this ceramic blade. I'm going to see if I can use it real quick. And what we're going to do is carefully scrape away at the green mask that's over the traces. Some of these ones are going to go back a little bit further because we broke them off. But as long as we have enough to solder to, then it's going to be fine. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I've shown in the past how you can rebuild the pads prior to soldering Today we're going to go through another method. This pad has actually been flipped over, and that's okay. I'm just going to scrape away at the underside so it exposes some of the copper. It's just a grounder, and we'll just do this on all of them. I'm going to attempt to use this one as the jumper itself. It looks like it's still connected in a solid way. And we need to expose these last two little traces and where they dive into, at least on this one. So now, the area, get out some flux, come in with our soldering iron, and I'm going to tin up all of these little traces. And I'm actually going to put some solder on the pads as well. And we'll just go through and make them all nice and shiny. I'm going to deposit as much solder as I can on the traces. And that shows you how flux really helps. As you can see, these first ones are really clean, but there's really no flux over here. And look, it's just making a mess of it. It's not really working. So let's add some flux over here, and then we'll come down in there and add the solder, and look how clean it is now. Okay, I'm also going to go ahead and add some more solder to the legs here real quick. And let's go solder on an HDMI. Alright, we're going to get out our new Xbox Series S HDMI. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of flux and we'll stick it on the legs. I take my soldering iron and I'm going to quickly tin all of the legs real fast. Got my hot air set at 500 degrees. We'll come in from below with our rework station and we're going to heat it up until the solder melts, and then we can just plop down the HDMI. We'll hold it there for a second and let it cool down, and now we can go back under the microscope and look at all of the pins. Alright, so there we've got the HDMI. You can actually see that we've got quite a bit of solder on the legs. In fact, we probably have a little too much on the back side, but they're clean, they look okay. Our little jumper wires are still intact in that area. Those guys are still good, and everything's lined up properly. So now we'll go through the process of running some jumpers real quick. I've got my little thing of wick right off to the side where I can pull wires from to run the jumpers. So let's go through the process of doing it this way so you can see how that's done. Alright, so this process is pretty straightforward. I'm going to grab a jumper wire and we'll come down on the first pin and we'll tack it on to the pin, and then we'll come down lower. So we'll get it nice and secure on that first pin, and then I can bend it around to the front. And then we can tack it down. I like to make sure the grounder ones are stable, so we'll go ahead and tack that as well. Then I'll gently come in with the blade and we'll cut off the little tail, and I'm actually going to use it for the next one because it's a short jumper. We'll tack it onto the third one there. Make sure it's not touching the grounder and or its neighbor. Then we'll cut off the little tail, and I'll actually use this tail over here. Let's zoom in on this one. So we've tacked it down to the little pad there. Alright, so we've got it secure on the leg, and we'll come down and secure it to the little pad there, just like that. I'm going to clean up some of the flux so it's a little easier to see. It's always a good idea to check your work because that is still a little loose, so let me quickly tidy it up. There we go. That's not going anywhere. And in fact, that solder blob that I just did here is enough to hold that one down. Let's see if we can utilize this trace. Yep, that's connected now as well. You can see it moves when I move the pin. I'm just going to do a quick time lapse of me fixing the rest of the jumpers. Alright, I'm just going to quickly go over and cut off all of the little tails. Alright, and the moment of truth is going to be, can I clean up the flux or will I break the joints? If you break the joints, then that means it wasn't strong enough. And so I like to run it through this basically test. can I clean it up thoroughly? So I'm going to take some isopropyl alcohol and a brush. We really want to make sure we have everything visible. Make sure there's no bridging. The best way to do that is with a good cleaning. Alright, let's zoom down on there and take a closer look. You can see we have a solid connection on pin 1, the grounder next to it. Pin 2, it didn't move, so 3, 4, 5. They're all looking really good. Obviously jumpers can only look so good. And it looks like I missed one. I forgot to run on the 4th one there from the end, that little jumper. I'll add some flux, grab a little jumper, we'll tack it to the leg. And with a little cutoff, I'm actually going to run a little jumper here while I'm here through the solder on that pin that we just did the solder on. So now we can take our multimeter and we can test the pins. We'll go to continuity mode, put a red probe on ground. Just going to put it on top of the HDMI. And I'm going to go to the first pin. And I'm getting 0.75. We should get ground, and we should get 0.75, 0.75, ground, 0.75. This is grounded and it shouldn't be, so we're going to have to look at this one real quick. Add some flux. It might just be that there's some solder touching the next pin. Alright, let's see if that takes care of the short that we have there. 0.75, ground, 0.75, 0.75, ground, 0.75, 0.75, 0.7, 0.4, 0.4, ground, 0.43, 0.43. Okay, they're all reading really good. Now you can cover this up at this point with some solder mask. I want to test it first, just double checking that those wires are still elevated, and they are. So I'm going to go plug this in and give it a test real quick. Alright, so it might be difficult to see, but back there we've got all of the jumpers, the ESD bypass, the diodes. Go ahead and quickly install the power supply. We'll put on the power button, hook up the HDMI and the power. And for the moment of truth, we are going to turn it on. And there we've got our logo. Heck yeah. All right. And that is all fixed. Now I just have to reassemble it fully. But now we're good to go. All right, so I still have to put it back together, of course. It's not too often that an HDMI breaks away like that and does that much destruction. But hopefully this has given you some insight into what it takes to fix damage like that. Running jumpers, bypassing components. It's quite satisfying, as you could see my raw reaction to it coming on and working. Even though I've done it hundreds of times, it's still rewarding to go through all of that work and have it work. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If there's something that you'd like to see in a future video, let me know as well. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.